Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the Sociopedia channel. Today, we're jumping right into Chapter 4 for Class 11, Culture and Socialization. All the notes you see on screen will be in English, which will be great for your exams, but I'll be explaining everything to make it super clear. So, let's begin. All right, here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll kick things off by figuring out what culture really is. Then, we'll look at its different parts, or dimensions. After that, we'll see how culture changes, what socialization is all about, and finally, who the key players are in our own socialization. So first up, what is culture? Now, we throw this word around a lot in our daily lives, right? But what it means in sociology is actually something much bigger, much more profound. Let's dig into that difference. You know, in our everyday chats, if we say someone is cultured, we probably mean they like classical music or appreciate fine art. It's treated like a personal badge of honor. But for sociologists, nah. Culture is the entire way of life for a group of people. It's not about you as an individual. It's about what we all share as a society. This is a classic definition from way back in 1871 by an anthropologist named Edward Tyler, and it still holds up. He called it a complex whole. And look what's in there. Knowledge, beliefs, art, morals, laws, customs, basically everything we learn and pick up just by being a part of society. It's the whole shebang. Here's a really great way to think about it. Imagine culture is your map. If you're dropped into a new city, you need a map to get around, right? Well, culture is the map for society. It gives you all the unspoken directions and rules for how to act, what to say, and how to fit in. Okay, so we've got a handle on what culture is. Now let's break it down into its main parts, or what we call dimensions. Think of these as the fundamental building blocks that make up our entire social world. First, we have the cognitive dimension. This is all about how our brain works, how we learn to understand things, like language, and give meaning to symbols. Next up is the normative dimension. These are the rules for how to behave. For instance, you act one way at a party and a completely different way at a funeral, right? That's the normative part. And finally, there's the material dimension. This is all the physical stuff, the objects, the tools, the technology, from our smartphones to the buildings we live in. So digging a little deeper into that normative dimension, we find norms. These are the unwritten, implicit rules. We just kind of know them. We follow them out of habit, usually without even thinking about it. A perfect example is a family rule that kids shouldn't stay out too late. No one wrote it down, but you just know it. Now, on the flip side, we have laws, and these are the complete opposite of norms. Laws are explicit, they are written down, they're official, and they're created by the government. Everyone has to follow them, and if you don't, like if you break the law against theft, there are real formal consequences. Okay, moving on to our third section. It is so important to remember that culture is not some fixed thing set in stone. It's alive. It's always changing, always evolving, especially when different cultures bump into each other. When cultures do meet, we often see something called ethnocentrism. This is a huge concept. It's basically when you use your own culture as a yardstick to judge other people's cultures. And it usually comes with the unspoken belief that, well, my way is the best way. And well, here's a very stark, historical example of that. This quote is from T.B. Macaulay back in 1835 during the British rule in India. His goal was to create a class of people who were Indian, but who thought and acted English in every way. It's a textbook case of one culture seeing itself as superior and trying to impose its values on another. So what's the opposite of ethnocentrism? It's cosmopolitanism. This is a much more open-minded perspective. Instead of judging other cultures, it actually values them for their differences. A cosmopolitan view welcomes new ideas, enjoys cultural exchange, and believes that borrowing from others makes us all richer. Okay, so we've talked all about this cultural map. We know what it is, and we know its different parts. But this brings up a really big question. How in the world do we learn the map in the first place? And that brings us to our next topic, socialization. Let's really think about that question. How do we learn the map for our society? How do we come to know all these rules, values, and ways of life? Well, the answer is a lifelong process, and it's called socialization. So, what is it? Socialization is the amazing journey every single one of us takes. It's the process that transforms a completely helpless baby into a self-aware, knowledgeable person who knows how to navigate the culture they were born into. It's literally how we become, well, us. And here's the kicker. This process never really stops. The most intense learning happens in our early years with our family. That's called primary socialization. But then, as we go to school, make friends, and get jobs, we continue to learn. That's secondary socialization. It's a process that goes on for your entire life. All right, for our final section, let's meet the teachers of society. These are what sociologists call the agencies of socialization. They are the specific groups and institutions that teach us everything we need to know to be a part of our world. Now, there are a bunch of these agencies, but these 5 are the heavy hitters. We're talking about our family, our peer groups, that is, our friends, school, the mass media, and of course, our workplace. Each one plays a huge role. The family is ground zero. It's our very first social world. This is where primary socialization happens, where we learn the absolute basics. And not just that, our family also sets our starting point in society, from our social class to our caste and regional identity. Then you've got your peer groups, your friends. This is a totally different world because it's a world of equals. There are no adults in charge. This is where you learn how to cooperate, how to compromise, and let's be honest, where you often test the boundaries and rules you learned at home. School is fascinating. Of course, it teaches us the formal stuff, math, science, history, but sociologists point out that it also teaches a hidden curriculum. These are the lessons that aren't on the syllabus, like being on time, respecting authority, and even subtle ideas about gender roles. We learn them without even realizing it. And in the world we live in today, you can't ignore the mass media. TV, the internet, social media, they are incredibly powerful teachers. They blast open our small world and expose us to ideas, people, and places we would never otherwise see, shaping how we think about everything. And that wraps up our deep dive into culture and socialization. Now, if you want to get the complete detailed notes for this entire chapter, all you have to do is join our Telegram channel. The link is right there for you in the description below. Thanks so much for watching.